All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Don Vandemark. This is Jeff Deeks. We're both from Media Current. We're senior project managers there. What we're going to be talking about today is about organizing your cases, your tickets, your tasks, whatever you call them in your world. Jeff will cover that part, and then I'll do a part on forecasting the work. Okay, so just real quick, I've been with IBM the past 13 years until about a month ago. I was a project manager at IBM for 13 years, and then a month ago I jumped over and joined Media Current so I could do Drupal for full time. So a lot of enterprise experience, which just means I know how big things fail as opposed to little things. So, and then I'll just hand over to Jeff for the first part of the presentation.
Yeah, hi. Like you said, I'm Jeff. Work with project management with Don. I was a member of the Atlanta Drupal user group for several years, and a year and a half ago moved down to Louisiana. So I'm up here from just north of Baton Rouge. Organized the Louisiana Drupal user group. We're meeting this coming Thursday. Y'all are all welcome down in New Orleans. Join us. We're gonna talk about case queues and tickets, whatever you may call them. Part of Don and I's role, in addition to managing the projects at Media Current, is looking for process improvement. You know, how are we doing? How can we be more efficient? How can we be consistent? And so, in looking through and discussing some of that, we put together an overview of things that we are doing, and also things that, with our team, we hope to improve upon ourselves. So, this presentation isn't all about everything that Media Current absolutely does. It's got some recommendations. We gave this presentation to our team a week or so ago as well. And I'm going to start with talking about different perspectives that what I'll call a triangle of assumptions that come into any work request that we're fulfilling on a Drupal site. You got clients, your team, and the project manager. Starting with clients, they want quality service, right? Prompt attention, courteous, efficient, doing things well. But there's constraints, time, budget, things like that. Developers, want to have creative solutions. Create elegant things that people like to use, solve problems. Don't really like to just be told exactly how to spit it out the bottom of the machine, right? And then the third part of the triangle, in between these two, don't want to hear from the chef, complain about what got ordered by the client. Don't want to, hear that the food tasted bad or cost too much, things like that. So how do we organize these, things that come in? Well, cases, right? Put it in a case queue. That'll solve our problems. Let's get it all in there. That's what we say. And so in talking about, oh, wonderful client, please, fill out a case. Drop a case for us. That'll solve it. We'll have, a team of highly skilled engineers monitoring every metric of your site and able to respond quickly with any problem that comes up. That, could be tumbleweeds or black hole. Past experience with case queues is often, it's like filling out paperwork at a doctor's office, right? And the person receiving the tickets is, an endless line of, things coming at you, problems, requests. Everybody needs something solved when you're looking at a case queue, right? And the result from those two perspectives is this is what the case queue looks like. Different size, thrown all in there, just a mess. This process isn't normal, right? We don't have a collection of individuals, coming together and filling their roles happily and understanding one another's needs, because we're using a software to record the things. We don't have a requirements gathering Smurf waking up in the morning saying, I'm going to ask lots of clarifying questions and gain priorities today. It's going to be Smurf-tastic. It doesn't work that way, So given this, it's about the people in this process, right? That whatever system you use, just installing the software doesn't solve this, triangle of assumptions and perspectives that hit the case queue. We use OpenA treatment media current. We used Jira before. Don, you've used Redmine and some of these others. Our talk today isn't really about, this is the best system and it's going to solve it, right? It's about what you plug into the software and the people participating. It's also not about, a particular methodology, whether it's Agile, Waterfall, and it's not necessarily an answer for, there's not one right answer for big companies, small ones. It's a common problem. It's, something needs to be solved. We need to work through a logical flow to organize and, get the work done. So what we're talking about, and that might be a little bit hard to see, but what we're talking about is, just a series of questions of, processing the request that comes in, however it comes in, the case gets dropped, a phone call, an email, whatever it is, whoever needs to pay attention to this request, what can we go through to start organizing it the right way from the outset? And that starts with a couple of questions up front, because we want to break apart the requests that come in into the various sizes. Often a queue will get out of whack if every case in there is large, small, it's a mixture of bug fixes and, normal tasks. We're building out a project or a section. And then, at the same level of requests, someone comes in and says, and I want a mobile version of my website. Same type case and appears in the list the same as, hey, move this thing over 1 pixel, right? So, the case comes in and needs the attention, right? The first thing is, is it easy? Can I solve this in 15 minutes or less? Is one rule of thumb we try to use. If that's the case, go ahead, solve it. Don't go through the rest of this, right? Close it out. Cross it off the list. Don't let that small problem linger and become the bigger one. Next, though, is it a simple task? It's not a 15-minute job, but it's a little bit bigger. And this is kind of the central place we want to get of the cases we do want in the system, right? We have one case, it's one task for one person. Now we start to get a little organization because we can look at the queue, in our case queue, whatever system you use, and have some sort of an expectation of, how much work is there to be done just by looking at the list. And Don we were gonna talk about, okay, what's a task? What's the size of a task, right, in any given organization?
So real quick, give Jeff a little break here. When we're talking about what is a task, how big is a task? And Jeff gave some great examples. Okay, make a mobile version of my website. Well, yeah, that's going to be this big. Okay, so there are many rules of thumb you can use. Some people use, is it going to take a day or less? That is a task. Is it going to take 4 hours or less? That is a task. I don't see many organizations go larger than a day. Okay, if it gets outside a day, you're dealing with that day-to-day transition where something else gets in the way of completing that task the next day. So when you're thinking about breaking your project into various cases, various tasks, it's up to the organization, it's up to the project managers to decide what size do we break this down to. On the other end of the spectrum, you don't want to say if it's bigger than 1 hour, you need to break it down into further tasks, because then you're just blowing your case queue out. So get a feel for what works with the people you're working for. 4 hours or 8 hours is usually a good guideline.
Thanks. All right, so we've got our task, whatever your definition of a task size is, and we're ready to start. But we're not just going to start coding, right? If that case comes in and normally The initial thing that's going to hit your system, maybe have a sentence if you're lucky. So what do we do with it, right? Do you have all that you need? And these are, this is whoever's processing this. It could be a designer getting a design request in the queue. It could be, a developer with something that needs to be built. Not really focused on the type of work, but, it's all requests in the system. And regardless of what the type is, the first thing you do is, do we have everything that we need? Is the priority of this clear? Do we have the raw materials? If I'm going to make a mock-up, do I have direction on what logo to use and things like that? Is all the information there? Could we do something with this? If not, stop there. Let's not start working on it. Let's, ask the project manager, ask the client, get what you need. Still not going to start yet. This is the one part that at Media Current, the one new thing we're hoping to introduce is the task plan. And I'll show you an example in a minute. But so we have all we need. We're going to think about what we're going to do, and let's kind of state that, right? We've thought it out. We know how we're going to build it. Let's put together a task plan, the target date, and how much effort this is going to take before we begin. Here's an example of a task plan. So, and this is, I want to put a latest 5 headlines on a homepage, right? Kind of common thing. Takes a couple minutes, but what we do is, these are the steps I'm going to do to build this thing, right? And kind of list it out and put it in there before we start. This will become important later in the process. Again, I talked before about, this isn't about the software or the system, it's about the people participating in it. Now, if we're fulfilling this and we think we're ready to begin, let's, again, stop and take the logical step. Okay, we've gone through, we've gotten everything we need, we've, planned out how we're going to build it. Now, do we need approval for that effort estimate before we begin? Did the scope of this change once we finish that task plan? It's like, that's a little bigger than I thought, or maybe it's smaller. Before we start coding, let's take that one extra step to raise our hand, and that'll manage the scope of the initiative overall. And now we're working on it, right? We're working against that task plan. What we say a lot with our team is, attention matters, right? Let's use the system, and in our case, we use commenting in Open Atrium and have a time tracking feature with it, and encourage our team to log their progress there with their time entries. It has a couple of benefits. It shows where we're active, so there's no question, right? The client gets notified, oh, okay, Media Current's working on this for me today. It ties it to the time entry, but also important, not only what we've finished thus far, but what's left, right? So that if somebody needs to check status of this, they don't need to call the developer, they could just look at the case queue. So that's the important part of this process is, if it's a 4-hour job and you're 2 hours in, log a quick comment, say where you're at, what's going on, gives opportunity for anybody that needs an update to get one. If it's something that spans an extra day, at the end of the day, leave it off with a comment. Here's where I stopped today. Here's where I'll start tomorrow, right? That way, if you're on a multi-person team, somebody else might need to pick it up tomorrow. You never know. And then, eventually the work's done. We've commented. We've done all these steps. Before we, send it out, call it done, go through the review step. Sounds simple. If you're in an agency or a shop with multiple people, run the case past somebody else. And if you put that task plan in place, it should be easy to test for anybody. You don't even have to know the project, right? Okay, does this view do what they said they were going to do when they started? And then close it out, right? Get all your views, run it past the client, get their sign off if need to. But the idea here is to keep these cases flowing through the system, use it like a checklist, check things off. Don't let it just stay in review state. Somebody needs to be reminded to look at it, do that. Keep it going. Now on that diagram with the questions of, how big is this, right? And we just find the size of a task. the bigger one, build the mobile website. Let's really adding a feature to a site, something bigger. That goes through a process, but it's really similar to the task one. It's kind of the same steps. Make sure you have all your stuff up front and you're ready to begin. State your intentions, scope it out. Here's how we think we would do it. Instead of a task plan, you can build a task list, right? An example task list for an event calendar might be, we're going to make a mock-up. We need an event content type. We need to build a view. We need to theme the view. And then each of those items on that list become task cases. So really a feature is just a group of tasks, right? And then those go in progress. All the tasks close, go through the same review cycle. And so that way, again, the cases and where the work's taking place are all at the task level, and your queue has everything at a rough sizing that you can kind of tell at a glance. And again, you're using your queue as a checklist. And if we've done all that, we've got this case queue and it's organized by tasks. It's commented, it's updated, everything's reviewable with the task plan. Now we can do some stuff with those cases, right? We can take some other activities, and now Don's going to walk you through, some of the good PM stuff we can do with an organized case queue.
So if we've got our case queue and we've got all the tasks laid out, somewhere in there came estimating, okay? And lots of literature on estimating. There are lots of presentations on estimating. I've listed some estimating resources up here. Lullabot's got what I consider to be the best estimating spreadsheet out there right now. Very detailed, makes you think about everything. Node Ones is great. Civic Actions came up with probably the first one that I knew of in this community. And then Johnny Fox, is Johnny in the room? There's Johnny. Johnny's going to be doing estimating later, and he's probably got his own tools that he'll show you later on. So it's just 2 rooms down. So go catch Johnny in 2 hours. So I'm not going to be talking about estimating. Okay, estimating is not forecasting. Forecasting, what we're talking about there is we've got the estimate. Okay, we know it's going to take 2 days to install. We know it's going to take 3 days to configure. Okay, and I did these as phases instead of individual tasks. I could have done it either way. This was just to get beginning to end of the project. So an estimate lays out the time required for each task. You can see how long everything's going to do. So a single person shop would lay it out one after the other and go. Okay, this project's going to be done in 19 days. How many people in here think this project is actually going to be done in 19 days? Exactly. Along the way, all sorts of things will happen. Okay, you install it, but the client didn't finish the list of requirements. Okay, so now you're waiting on the client for 2 days. You take 2 days to configure it. Now your driver's license is coming up for renewal, and if you've been to the DMV, it takes you all day to get your driver's license reviewed. You do another day configuration. You do your theming. Client takes vacation, doesn't answer email. You're dead another 2 days. So on and so forth. Your custom code took you 3 days longer than you expected it to. The client requests a new feature. That always happens. And then finally you get to testing. So that 19-day estimate you had early on, you thought you were going to be done in roughly under 4 weeks, just took 30. So now it took 6 weeks. So that impacts a lot of things. That impacts the client, okay, because they were expecting it 2 weeks earlier. It impacts you as if you're a single person developer, it impacts you because you were expecting to start that next project 2 weeks ago. So it's just an endless snowball. A multi-person shop can split it up, stack the work. Okay, you've got your developers, you've got your themer. They can stack all the work. Nice big block of testing there. We're going to really knock out testing. This is going to go great. And after 9 days, we're going to kick it off. This works well for a firm with a single project, but as you know, same types of things happen. Okay. There's an emergency in Project B that only that first person can fix. The client points out that, by the way, you missed this requirement. There are sick days in there. So you finish in 9 days, but you left out testing. So now you're either going to push it and pray, or project C is going to get delayed. Again, missed deadlines, bad quality, postponed project, frazzled nerves, all those things that you have to avoid. So in order, let's go ahead and go on. Forecasting has no silver bullet. Just like in case management, we showed you those 20 tools. There's no one way to do forecasting. This is an example of our spreadsheet at Media Current. We use a spreadsheet. We don't use anything fancy, okay? We've got person 1, person 2, person 3. We've got all the projects they're working on. And then over there, we subtotal all that so that we see how many hours go against each project, okay? Just simple spreadsheet work. This, I do want to just take a second to point out one thing. This totals per week thing here, if you're project managing and everybody that you're setting tasks for is at 40 hours a week, you're in trouble, okay? That's not good, okay? You've got to build in administration time, all of those other things that happen, or else things are going to be late or people are going to be working 50 hours a week. Okay, one or the other. Rarely are you going to nail down that 40-hour estimate. Okay, so make sure this 31 number, it's just a number I picked out of the air. We use a different number at Media Current. It's whatever you think you can do as far as productive work for each person. Okay. On the next slide, we've got more spreadsheets because most project managers love their spreadsheets. They can make them dance all they want. All I did here is the one on the right is very similar to the one we saw earlier, person, project. I pulled it over here to the left so I can see, okay, I can see I've got, all right, so I've got 8 hours going on project C on Monday, and okay, I'm fairly well distributed over here, and then I go over there and I see I've got person 1 doing nothing on 2 days of the week. So again, if you can make your spreadsheets dance well enough, you can step through and work it out. Again, I pointed out this big red box here. This person's working 9 hours this day. I need to move those hours around because expecting people to work more than 8 hours a day is not a long-term recipe for success. Okay, so let's go ahead and step on. Just a couple tips to help your forecasting. And this is my number one rule of project management overall, not just forecasting, but communicate, okay? You have to be communicating to the client, this is the timeline. We need you to have your content done by this date so that we can proceed on, okay? If you have dependencies on the client, you have to be communicating those, or else you're gonna get to that thing you forecasted and you're gonna be waiting. And dead time kills any project, kills the profitability of any project. You have to communicate delays. You have to communicate if you're missing things, okay? I can't think of a good reason to ever hide anything bad from the client, okay? Always share with the client what's going on, keep them up to date on the status. Know the quality of your estimates. So, one thing we joke about sometimes is that there's a big number on each developer's forehead, and you know that if that developer gives you an estimate, okay, I've got to multiply it by 1.5 because this developer doesn't think about all the steps he has to take, or okay, I have to cut this 1.5 because this developer builds in all this extra time. So just know your people. If you don't know your people, that's okay. If you're a freelance project manager working with different people all the time, that's okay. Have some buffer in mind that you use. But if you know your people, then you can start not discounting their estimates, but certainly giving it a certain multiplier. Build in margins. So I threw the 25% number up there. Pick whatever number you think is right for your contingency in your forecast, okay? Again, experience will help you here, okay? I'm not saying 25% is right. That's just a number. Use your experience. Say, okay, last project, we said it was going to take 100. It took 110. Project before that, we said it was going to take 100, it took 90. So we're around 10%. So let's build that margin in. So that's it. So that's we gave you two different topics, trying to help you get your case queue organized. Jeff has posted a blog going over the same details he went on his presentation over at mediacurrent.com/blog. I'll be following up with one on forecasting in the next week or so. And this presentation can be found on slideshare.net/mediacurrent in the future. I know I used the present tense word there, but that'll be in the future.
Yeah. And in the blog post, I went through a series of kind of questions and steps to kind of get to those slides. What we first did is very detailed. Step 1, A, B, C. Step 2, 3. Kind of a little bit more detail to it. It's a thrilling read, I promise. But I went ahead and posted that there in case anybody's interested. I'd love for y'all to check it out and tell us what y'all do. Comment in there if there's something that it doesn't look quite right, looks out of order. Love to hear that too.
We've got our contact information up there, so feel free to reach out to us. We'll answer any question. We may answer it incorrectly, but we'll answer any question. So, yeah.
So you mentioned task planning in particular, but planning in general. I'm always a little, in my career, I've had different experiences with planning. Sometimes, certain kind of planning gets you a lot. Sometimes you overplan, you get into the middle of the task, you realize you learn something new, client calls with new requirements, you didn't realize the system had something in it, and your plan was thrown out the window. How much energy do you put into planning, and where do you kind of draw the line and say, okay, I planned enough, I better just get to work because.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of put it at the case level, right? It's the thing that needs your attention, and has it made it through those steps, and is it in a good place, right? And it's those thought steps. Okay, we've gotten this far now. Does somebody need to approve it because the scope changed? Like I said, kind of get back. But that's where it's kind of down to the task level, so that it's not worried about the entire project right that minute. It's, okay, this is what I have here, and hopefully if the forecasting side gave you the space to work on that, within that period of time, it's making sure you have the materials to work with, making sure you're still building it the way you had planned to build it, right? And so that when you're done, it can be referenced back to that, is the idea. If that task plan changes, that's probably the point where you might need to talk to somebody about that, right? For whatever reason it might be. Let the project manager know, or raise it with the client. Hey, I'm in here, a couple hours in. Well, this is looking a little different than I thought. Let's talk through this.
Yeah, and at a meta level, up at the project level, I'm running into it right now, to be honest. We gave a proposal to the client, said it was going to be 70 hours. We're done in 4 weeks. We're 2 weeks into it. We're 20 hours done. We're not making 4 weeks. What happened? We had some code repository issues. All things that can be explained to the client. All things that they'll buy off on because they were part of the problem most of the time. That's where that communication comes in. So it's really just a case of plan it out as best you can, and then improvise. Improvise and communicate. So there's no silver bullet. There really is. If your plan made it from beginning to end without changing it, you're extremely lucky. So, or you had an extreme amount of contingency in there. So, other questions?
I can see it when you talk about task breakdown, getting down to either 4 to 8 hour kind of chunks of work. That implies that there's some structure here. That as you're breaking one larger task down into smaller tasks, as you're managing that project, I want to be able to see at different levels. I don't want one big bucket of granular tasks to try to figure out where are we. I want to be able to look at the major milestones and elements of the project and say, we're 60% on this page or this part of the system, and 80% on this one, and maybe I want to get this one into QA, so I'm going to focus resources. What are some good techniques for getting beyond just 100
Right.
granular tickets.
Yeah, you're
Okay, so the
describing.
question.
Yes, I'll talk about the feature part first.
Okay, I'll repeat the question real quick.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
So the question was, essentially, how do you track the progress of the project, and how do you help me summarize?
How do you organize a large number of granular tasks into
Right.
groups
Okay.
that can be moved through the process and
Okay, so how do you organize a large amount of tasks into something you can work with and see the progress of the whole thing?
see part?
Yeah,
Right.
C being the important part. So I'll let
Yeah.
you jump in.
So I kind of condensed it onto one slide, but that's what you're describing to me a little bit is the features, the features area where it's not the one thing for one person, right? But features are a group of those one things. In our system, in Open Atrium, you can enter a case and then mark it as a milestone in that system, and that's what we aim to group as a feature, because what you can do then is you can associate the other cases to that milestone in that system. There's other ones might do it another way, but you've got kind of a grouping one that has those individual tasks within it. So then you can go to the list of the milestones to see the view you're describing, where it's here's the different milestones or features that we're building for this thing. They all have subtasks, right, or individual tasks within them, but it's got that larger view. So we use the example of the mobile website or the mobile part of the website, right? That would maybe be a feature. It'd have a bunch of tasks underneath it. And then in our system, it's node references. Basically, you have, the milestone view of it with links to all the individual cases if you want to drill down into it.
So yeah, the other part of it is the C part of it, and that's going to come down to your tool. So pick a tool you're comfortable with, and abuse it as much as you can. Okay, we use Open Atrium. It's not the Open Atrium you get out of the box. Okay, it's been customized. We have a long list of future customizations we're going to be doing to it, and one of the ones that is right at the top of my personal list is graphical representation of where the project is. Okay, so right now we don't have the graph, a Gantt chart, or some other visual thing that you can show the client and they understand immediately. Because the way it sits right now, we've got this list. We've gotten broken down into milestones. So if we click the milestone, it'll reduce the list. It's still a list. It shows, here's how many hours we estimated for each of these. Here's how many we spent. You still have to kind of go, okay, yeah, we're ahead on this one. We're done here. It's not perfect. Okay, so again, it's using your tool and knowing your tool. We didn't come out here to evangelize any tool, because in my mind, none of them are perfect. So I've used quite a few. IBM, big company, big money, lots of research dollars. They don't have this problem solved. Okay, they struggle with their tools. Okay, it's incredibly frustrating. When I was there, it was incredibly frustrating.
Along these lines of what you were talking about, and I think production was to an extent, do you think there's any case for maintaining really kind of two different sets of tools and even almost two different sets of data? Because, to my mind, clients care about Gantt charts and that kind of thing. I couldn't care less. I just want to know, I don't really care how long someone spent working on something. I just want to know, is it going to get done by this date? And I think there's always a tug of war with project management between the kind of base tank, keep it really simple, and then the track every hour, start to finish kind of thing. And I almost feel like trying to solve everything as one problem kind of misses the mark a little bit.
And I'll try and repeat the question again, and I struggle to boil it down. Is there a use case, or is there a reason to have two separate sets of data? One being, here's what we're going to show the client. Okay, here's a nice pretty Gantt chart that we can show the client. The other being, okay, how far are we done on each individual task so that we can make sure we're on target? Is that essentially?
It's two sets of data, maybe two almost completely different approaches to how you're tracking stuff and what you're tracking.
Okay, so you can. To be honest, I'm going to have to think about that question as I go here. So So give me a second. If most of your tools will do both. It's a question of, do you like what your tools are giving you? Okay, Microsoft Project, it's the big name out there. It produces nice, pretty Gantt charts. It's a pain in the neck to use. Okay, and giving it to a client, showing it to a client, you can show them the Gantt chart, which is what you're referring to. But again, it's at a detail level. Go ahead.
I've worked on projects where a PM has worked in Microsoft Project, and they've maintained a super detailed schedule, and they've given that fosters a certain level of confidence in the project. But really, behind the scenes, no one is using it internally. Right? They're all using it.
Right.
That's exactly the point. Okay, so his point was, because it's exactly true. If you give a Gantt chart at a Microsoft project to a client, they're like, this thing's under control. They think that means if you're using Project and you've produced a Gantt chart, you know what you're doing. Okay. To some degree, if you can figure out how to get all that into Microsoft Project, you do. But behind the scenes, the actual project management isn't happening. You're just making pretty pictures. Is the point I think you were trying to say. So I don't know that I have an answer for that, but that's a very good example.
Well, I have another thought there. Part of, to me, what you're describing is really the reporting function, right? Like, and different parts of the team, right? The one that with the waiter picturing and what's the service, right? That's the reporting can be part of that answer, right, for the service. And a good answer that I heard at DrupalCon Chicago from Seth at the Lullabots on a panel about project management and everything he gave was, what we really realized is you need more than one type of report on projects a lot of the time. The main stakeholders or the executive sponsor or the client just wants that total roll-up summary of where we're at. Versus the team that's working on it every day might need to be looking at at a more granular report, and really what we're going for with the case queue part is you have to start with that. The foundation is that you've got the good information and the updates and things stored somewhere, hopefully in an organized way. Then you can report on top of that using maybe a different tool if need be. Sometimes you'll get clients that will engage in your case queue and they're fine with that, right? They can see it's going on, the developers are active and it's good. Other cases, folks are never going to log into that and you have to report out to them a different way with something that meets their needs. Other questions?
Okay, we've still got 10 minutes, so if there are no more questions, that's a free 10 minutes for you all. We could talk on, but it'd get more boring probably.
Yeah, and if I can, I've had a little trouble with the connection today, but I'm happy if anybody wants to come, we'll show you our Atrium install if I can get onto the web here, if anybody wants to see some, what the case queue kind of looks like.
All right.
With the new one, I hope so.
With the new project, we will. That's my plan. It's my project, so I hope I get approval for that.
Yeah.
With the current modifications we have, it was done in one of the early beta versions of Open Atrium to where we're not even going to upgrade anything. We're going to install the current version of Open Atrium and copy all those customizations over, recode them as we need to. So as we get further down that path, yes, I've got it even broken down into what types of modules. We'll have time tracking, we'll have forecasting, we'll have time reporting. There's one other that I can't remember off the top of my head. But the idea is to release them back out. Anything else? All right, thank you.